Yeah, it's called, I think there is an expression called a lava layer anti-pattern. That means that you are taking all the new toys, but you are not implementing them through whole of the application. For example, you do an ORM, change ORM system, and you are using the old one in some part of application and the new one in some part of application. And you just keep doing that. It becomes these layers of lava or molten stone over time.
Indeed, hard to change afterwards.
Hey there, welcome to Beta Talks, the podcast. I'm Rick.
And I am Oscar.
And today we are joined by Panu Oksala, who is a Microsoft MVP and a CTO at Adafy.
Welcome, Panu.
Welcome.
And thank you for having me.
Well, it's so great to have you on. Just to get to know you a little bit. So what is it that you do at Adafy, and what's the company like, right? So you're a CTO, but what's your general day-to-day?
Well, we are quite small company, only 20 employees. So that means that I'm participating in the daily work a lot. So I do coding, I help customers do things in Azure, set up things in Azure. System integration is a huge part of our daily job. Mm-hmm. So doing the daily stuff and also trying to keep up with tech stuff. There is a lot of happening, as you know. There is a lot of things on AI and everything like that. And also I try to make our employees so that they are participating everything in tech. So they give speeches, they are educating other people and participating into customer workshops and that kind of thing. So I try to get best out of our employees. That is, I think, my main job.
I think that also asks something about the type of employees that you have, right? Because Oscar and I have done this program a little while back with our previous employer, where we tried making people enthusiastic to go up on a stage or maybe write an article or record a video. But for some people, that just isn't in their DNA, or it's just not who they are. So is that something that you explicitly look for when hiring people for the company, or is it something that you're trying to enable within the people that are already working there?
Yeah, you can contribute in different ways, but I think being enthusiastic about the tech and programming is the most important part that we usually look for. Mm-hmm. But it's not required that you would write blogs or present something, because you can participate in different things like writing internal documentation or tips or sharing your feelings in Slack, company Slack or something like that. It can be minor or it can be major. But of course, doing the customer work is the most important part when hiring new people.
Yeah, but one of the things that you call out is passion. And I think that's, in the end, that's what makes a great techie, right? If you have that passion, that you actually want to dive into a problem if you find one, or that you actually want to get to know that new service if it speaks to you. Is that something that you have yourself? It probably is if you're trying to keep up with everything that's happening. But
yeah, definitely. That is, I like to spend my free time on doing tech stuff, like programming and searching for new things. And usually I spend 2 hours maybe per day after my work time to do something tech related.
But I happen to have not. It's not something that just happened, but I happened to look at your website, and on the about page, it actually said that sometimes you might get so technical or so enthusiastic about something technical that you almost literally forget your surroundings and the world around you. Mm-hmm. Do you remember what the last thing was where you dove in and then after a couple of hours thought, oh, is it that time already?
Where am I?
Yeah, there are many of those things happening on in last year. But one thing that I remember very well is when Microsoft Fabric came out, and I was testing out the Fabric, how it looks like and what you can do with it. And remember my initial thought about that. This is a really good product that you can actually do real stuff with it. So I think Fabric was something that sucked me in really well. And I have spent countless nights after that, like twinkering and seeing what kind of things you can do it and how you can do it with Fabric.
So as far as I'm concerned, Fabric is everywhere now. I think we just had Fabric February, or maybe it was Fabric Friday, but it was a conference with only Fabric stuff. For people listening who are not necessarily well versed in Fabric, could you maybe in a couple of sentences explain what it is? Because I think some people think, it's just Power BI with AI and that's it.
Yeah, well, I think Fabric will eat the Power BI eventually, but currently it's a data platform. That is what I told for our customers. It's a data platform that you can use to ingest data from different kind of data sources, put it in one place, and build reporting and analyzing, like AI analyzing or something like that on top of the Fabric. So it's a place for your data, all your company data.
And how does this relate to what's it called? OneLake? Because you see that now also popping up. Is that then more the data itself, and is this the BI layer?
It's an abstraction on top of the storages that you have on Fabric. It means that you can use all the different kind of storages, for example, from Power BI, without that you don't need to know about the details of the underlying data or how it's structured. You can use it like it's in SQL database or something like that. So it unifies the way to store, access the data.
Okay, so there's no extra data engineering step in there to get the one source to the other part of the platform.
Yeah, usually you just ingest into the OneLake or something like that, and there is ready-made connectors to access the underlying storage. So you don't have to worry about that much if you don't want to.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, OneLake also has these, let's say, I'm trying to make the movement that they have these tentacles in which they can get data from other sources, but leave it there. So not necessarily copy, but you can use OneLake to actually read from your Cosmos DB or your SQL database or your storage or whatever, but not duplicate the data.
Not
but
full
just
ETL pipeline, but just an interface.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's called shortcuts. So you can like make the data look like that it would exist in Fabric, even though that it doesn't. So you can make shortcut for Azure SQL database or Cosmos DB or something like that. Or if you don't like that, because that will put pressure on usually your production or operational database. So you might want to mirror the data. So you can also enable mirroring into the Fabric where your data is actually copied. And if you do heavy reporting or heavy queries, it doesn't affect your operational database.
Yeah, because that's of course one of the things that's always been very difficult in.
We used to design those those layers. Like it was a lot of work to actually get your data in, get them as real time as possible, basically optimize them for read.
Yeah.
And that's now basically transparent, or how should I see that?
Well, I think you need to know the basics still, and you need to apply the principles that you have done previously, like separating the data into different layers or tiers and that kind of thing. So that is still exists, but it's just a lot easier to do. You don't have to worry about network restrictions or something like that so much, or identities or access methods. That those are a little bit easier now.
Yeah, okay. And you of course still have the issue of like what data would you want to expose, because I can imagine exposing your production database, or at least the data from there, that not all fields should be readable. So there's still some engineering or mapping going on there.
Yeah, that's not going away. Yeah.
No.
So moving a little bit into, because I mean, we've only said AI like 2 or 3 times, so we need to we need to talk about that just a little bit more. One of the things that also stood out to me is the fact that you wrote an article on the new Microsoft.extensions.ai library, and what it will do for semantic kernel. Could you maybe give us a brief overview of what it is that you talk about in that article?
.NET 9 edition, right?
Yeah. The AI extension is. I don't have any insights on this, so I'm not sharing anything like that is secret or anything like that. These are all my opinions.
Mm-hmm.
But the AI extension, when the semantic kernel came, it was really cool that you could do AI stuff with C# and you could change the model behind the scene and you can use functions and that kind of features that are available in models. But problem with semantic kernel is that it's a little bit complicated. It can get complicated. And when you start using it, it's a little bit, you need to set up certain things and you need to do things in a certain way. So I think the Microsoft wanted to do something that is more easier to set up and more easier to do. And they kick up this new AI extensions that is easier to set up. And it's like easier to integrate with .NET apps. You can use services and the normal .NET capabilities when you are using the AI capabilities. With semantic kernel, you have to use the kernel object that is like central part of that library. And that is a little bit different kind of abstractions that we are usually used in .NET software.
Yeah, because there's also the Onyx and the Onyx runtime, and then you have the Windows, what's that called? Copilot runtime, which also is a way of utilizing AI functionality within your Windows application. So there's a lot moving there, right? Do you have, what is your prediction on where this in the end will move?
And you can use OpenAI SDK, or there are a lot of tools. You are correct on that. And it's a little bit mess, I would say, currently. But as of today, I'm saying that if you are building solution that is using AI, and the AI is centric part of your solution, then you should use semantic kernel because it has the most features and the ecosystem is quite good. But if you are building existing application and you want to add AI capabilities into it, then you should look for the AI extensions library. I think that is the distinction now. That is just my opinion, but still.
And you would is the normal straightforward SDK if you want to use, I don't know, OpenAI, Azure OpenAI, the normal client, that's something you should now not do anymore because that was the only way in the beginning?
Yeah, the extensions library gives you an abstraction on top of that. Of course, if you are going to use only OpenAI, you are never going to change it and you are building everything that is related to the OpenAI, then you could maybe go with the default. But if you are using Azure AI Foundry, which is the what was it called earlier? It was AI Studio. Yeah. So there, if you leverage that and you want to use models from there, then you have to use these abstractions, the libraries.
Yeah, like in the beginning, those models also started adding features and settings that weren't there or weren't exposed in the beginning. So an abstraction would have probably be limiting the moment you do that. Is that now settled down that they could start building these abstractions? I remember in the beginning, I was just slapping a prompt together with an example, and then you got those types of messages in, and then you got all more control. But the moment you go back to an extra abstraction, then basically we need to start treating all the models with the same parameters, I guess.
Yeah, that is still a bit problem. Of course, the abstractions comes a little bit later than the model itself gets the capabilities, but you can load different models that don't support everything. For example, you can load a DeepSeek model that doesn't, I think, necessarily support the functions and that kind of thing. So you don't know if you load the model what kind of features in coding sense you get all the same abstractions, and you can try to set up functions and call it, but it's just not working. So that is a big problem, I think, that you cannot ask from models if you are having these kind of capabilities, at least in my knowledge.
But you could really quickly swap out, I guess. Like if you want, like the DeepSeek came out, I can imagine for some workloads, you could, like it was just generating connection string and you're done. You could test your existing solution again.
Yeah. And if you are using AI Foundry, you can just deploy the model and just change the name of the model in your code.
Yeah, it's just a model name in the end.
Yeah, it's the deployment that you pick, right?
Yeah.
I think you officially deploy a model and then it gets a deployment name, and that's
the endpoint stays the same.
That's what
the
you
connection
reference.
stays the same. It's just a model name that you're using, indeed.
Yeah, and you can use the same code, but it's just might not work with all the fancy stuff.
Yeah. Oscar, do you know what time it is?
Is it time for a totally random question?
It's time for totally random question.
Wow. Let me see, what did I get? If you could debug one thing in real life, what would it be?
Well, I have a hobby that I'm, I don't know what is the English word, but I'm a gold digger. I go into Lapland every summer. I dig gold from the ground. That is my hobby. So I would maybe like to debug where all the gold is coming from. So I could find the source of the gold and stop working with this tech stuff.
Find the stack trace.
Wow, but that's how do you? So you literally go somewhere and then.
First I thought like Lapland gold digger, but gold digger. It's like you find gold everywhere. But
but it is.
But I've never heard someone.
So we have this romanticized view of people having a sieve going through sand in the river, whatever. How does that work for you? Is that part true, or is it really you're just covered in mud trying to find stuff in a pile of?
Yeah, usually you are just in bottom of some digging hole or pit, and you are trying to dig the sand wall in front of you that is full of rocks. And the digging is very hard, and you don't usually find that much gold. But it's good way to get forget everything that is tech related for a week or two, so you can get an escape from the IT for a week.
That's actually something that we've discussed earlier, where it just helps every now and again if you can, just like you said, completely let go of everything that's tech related and just do something
without the time pressure or whatever.
And specifically doing something with your hands, right? Something physical that really helps.
Yeah.
Do you have other things that you do to take your mind off of the IT stuff? So do you, let's say, walk or read or?
Well, I play pinball as an amateur. I'm not a professional in that sense. We don't have professional pinball players yet. Hopefully we have in near future, but not currently. But that's something that consumes my time. And then I go to the gym 2 times a week or 3 times a week.
Yeah.
So, and you can use the gym time like listening for podcasts. So you can combine the tech with the gym if you want to.
You do that? Because I've tried that, and then I found myself like waiting at a machine way too long because I was so interested in what I was hearing that I wasn't thinking about the physical aspect anymore.
Yeah, I feel that, and I'm not doing that very often. If there is something mandatory that I need to listen, for example, if you are publishing new episode, then I might do that.
That's mandatory,
especially if you're on it, right? No. So. We've already talked a little bit about the passion for tech and the way how you also try to have the rest of the company feel that way. What is it for yourself that has driven you to not only want to learn all of those new things, but also try and advocate them or try to teach them or try to be on a stage and talking about that? What drives you in that sense?
I think there are two different things. First is that I usually learn by teaching. So if I know that I have to tell someone about something, I will go very deep and try to learn not everything, but as much as possible about that thing, so that I can teach it for the others. Yeah, be prepared. Be well prepared.
It's the conference-driven learning, right?
That's what, sometimes we do, right?
We've done it in the past.
Yeah, you're getting afraid of being on stage, so you have to learn really well.
Yeah, and then your end of your talk is like, 80% I prepared is actually didn't need it.
Yeah.
But that's always better than
not
having enough.
Yeah, that's true. The another thing is that if you teach basics of, for example, programming to someone, you might change that person's life totally if they get a job in programming or if they decide to driven towards the programming. And that can be in minor things, like if you teach someone about AI, they can like, this is really cool. I want to learn everything about AI, and it can become important part of their lives. So you give these keys that they can use or not in their life to get into tech or get into that topic more. So I think it's very powerful if you teach something for someone.
It's actually quite a profound statement that you can alter somebody's life, and I totally agree with you on that one. But it's quite profound, right?
I don't think we're thinking about that enough. Indeed, like I never, of course, you're giving someone access to a piece of knowledge or whatever, but like that their whole path might change because they took that route. Like it's unlocking a level for them. That is, I can imagine. Yeah, that's fulfilling.
Have you encountered something like that yourself? Did somebody spark your fire, or was that just you being behind a machine and trying to start games from a tape deck? Or
well, I'm from quite from poor home. We didn't have a lot of money, so computer is something that you can do for almost free if you just afford the computer. So I did some summer work when I was 12 years old and got enough money to buy the first computer. And then I realized that this could be my work if I just learn to do all the things really well with this thing. And that's why I usually keep everything that I do, like videos or blog posts or things like that, free for everyone, because I know there are people that are in similar situation that I was earlier. So keeping everything free is very important for me.
That's actually that's quite impressive, and I mean, I totally agree with you on that one as well. Still, you had that summer job where you earned enough money to be able to buy yourself that computer. But how did you find the power of the computer, or how did you get infected by the bug that led you onto the path of computers?
I think it might be the gaming, because we had Amiga 500, which is the greatest computer of all time almost. So I think that might have given me some kind of bug about that this is cool or this is what I want. But we also had programming like lessons in school, preschool. So maybe that was something that driven me towards this, that I was able to try things and try to do programming in early age.
Yeah, that's actually something that I think we don't do enough yet here in the Netherlands. There are some programs from companies that are volunteering to go to primary school and teach about coding and that kind of stuff.
My kids, they get some lessons in primary school already.
And mine didn't, nothing whatsoever. And I really think it's strange that in this day and age, we don't teach that as a,
we shouldn't
as a
make
subject
it
as well.
More magical than it already is, our profession. Because indeed, if you don't have anyone at home or whatever in this, it might be never a path for you, while you could be really great at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think for the gender equality and that kind of things, that if we give possibilities for many people, it will improve over time and more people will find in tech.
Yeah, and that's we recorded an episode before this one where this was also a really strong topic, and it's let's just be welcoming, right? Let's just whoever wants to find their luck in working in tech. I mean, anybody can do that if you apply yourself.
Be welcome. Like I'm not getting to the bottom of my to-do list, so come and help out.
Not anytime soon.
Yeah.
You're also a Azure or .NET MVP, and an MVP normally means that you spend a lot of time in the community. Or we just established that you did. What makes that you're so specifically an MVP for .NET? So has that been your poison of choice, so to speak, for the past couple of years, or are you really passionate about that framework and those languages as well?
I have done .NET for my whole IT career, so almost 20 years, 15 years, something like that. So the .NET has always been part of my work or what I'm doing. And well, currently I don't have much time to code in .NET, so .NET is not something that I'm super deep in. I know a lot about it, but I'm not knowing everything about like every small details. But .NET is part of everything that I almost do. So if I'm using Azure, I use .NET in Azure. I use .NET in building many different kind of solutions around other services also. So .NET is kind of glue that is behind everything, but it's not something that I'm super deep into.
Yeah, but it is. I mean, it does, or it has changed tremendously over the years. I've also seen the introduction of .NET 1.0 with, I think it was still called Visual. No, anyhow, it had a different name than Visual Studio. I think the first IDE that came out. What's your idea?
I know it, but come up with it.
Both drawing a blank.
Yeah.
What's your take on all of the new additions, or actually simplifications of the language, where we can have now top-level statements where we don't need to explicitly add namespaces
specifically
anymore?
C#, you mean?
Yeah, in this case, that's C#. Yeah. So, what's your take on those additions, or maybe even simplifications of the language itself?
Idea behind that is that it would be more easier to approach. So we would get more .NET programmers or more C# programmers because it's easier to do console application, for example. And that is fine. I don't have anything against that. That is good. Sometimes, well, we have a lot of things. Let's say that there are many ways to do the same thing in .NET or C#. And that can be a little bit problematic. If you Google something, you might get different kind of results, but they are doing the same thing, but just different ways. So if you are a newcomer into the C#, it can be a little bit confusing because, okay, I have 3 ways to do this anonymous objects. Which one I should use? And when we add new ways to do the same things, even though that it's simpler, it can cause confusion for the newcomers. So we need to be really careful if we add new simpler ways to do, like accessing the arrays or index stuff or something like that. We need to think about that. Is the current way just simplified enough? Do we really need another way to do this thing, even though that it saves some characters in code?
Yeah, well, you are in a condition where you have the team members, maybe new team member with different experience coming in, even really experienced one. Like we always did like this because we had some rules that we set up 5 years ago. And I come from a code base with a couple of million lines, and we're not introducing all the new shiny stuff because it becomes messy, right? But if you combine a team then, and someone comes in and you start it from scratch, and someone said like, let's use all the new toys because it looks clean, and the newcomers will only have one way. Like it's you need to come up with your own set of rules in the context, and slowly have the discussion every time C# pops up some new options, because some of them is like, okay, clearly use the new thing if it's there because it removes so much fluff around the code. It really cleans it up. And sometimes indeed it's like, yeah, why would you? Like it's if you have some experiences, it's not more readable. It's like most of the code base is like this. So why would we do that? Would we then like dig through the whole thing and change everything? So that's sometimes a bit hard indeed with a language that has evolved so much. If you where to stop, where to start.
It's called, I think there is an expression called a lava layer anti-pattern. That means that you are taking all the new toys, but you are not implementing them through whole of the application. For example, you do an ORM, change ORM system, and you are using the old one in some part of application and the new one in some part of application. And you just keep doing that. It becomes these layers of lava or molten stone all the time.
Indeed, hard to change afterwards.
Yeah.
It is an interesting concept, especially if you're working on a project for a long time. And you could have a consultant coming in, working for a project on a short time, throwing it there and continuing, and you're left with the 3 flavors of fun. But I really like to sit with the team. It's like, okay, what do we think about this? Let's play around with it. Like, is it worth it or not?
Sometimes it can be worth it.
And maybe 2 years later, it's like, well, we also when Microsoft introduces some of their APIs and they have a new way of working or a new way of injecting or whatever, like some patterns emerge and you will see them and you're working so much with them, they become common. And at some point it's like, okay, let's just start doing this. I remember the biggest clash with a new feature coming in is that when Link just came in, and well, I'm really old if I'm saying that. And we had a sequely statement and the fluent one, and we still have them both. I definitely had a preference, but the most horrible thing was having them mixed.
Oh yes. And maybe even mixed within the same
just next
method
to each other
or whatever, Because
in this case, this is really short. In this case, this was shorter. It's like, oh, that's not a good reason. Less characters.
Unfortunately, especially with time pressure, that's how it works sometimes, right? But I do have to say all the stuff that cleans up what it looks like with the implicit usings and with the namespace that you can just semicolon and not have the added or curly braces. That's
but it's also a bit eye candy. But for me, that cleans up a lot. I like the primary constructor.
Yep. I use that.
There is some discussion then. Okay, what are we gonna do with the fields then? Like, are we using the scoped ones from the constructor itself, or we're gonna map them to the fields anyway?
There's actually, I think. Is it available now, or I think in the next version where you can you have the auto properties, but it do have the backing field, and you can address the backing field inside of the property. Finally,
that should be the next step there.
It's there. I don't think it's on its way. Yeah, I've seen a demo of it, and it might be in the next version of .NET. But
that discussion, brand new feature. I had multiple teams. I have 2 teams doing the exact opposite thing there. Like super nice. And it's always moving. And for instance, one of the best features is the initializers for collections. So if it's an array or a dictionary, for anything, just 2 brackets. Makes sense. Like it's super readable. It seems the same. Basically looks like JavaScript. But it cleans a lot up. And if you refactor something, you don't have to move it from array.empty to new list or to one of those. It all just continues working. So those also help you refactoring and go to a newer place.
And it makes coding easier. But one thing that I'm always joking about is that we spent 10 years learning to use var keyword. So you can use var customer equals new customer. Now if you want to use the new operator, you have to put it on the beginning and discard the var again. So you are doing customer equals new.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm typing something and it's like var blah new. It's like, oh no, this isn't gonna work. I'm missing a type.
I had to look it up. So C# 13 adds field batch properties that allow you to use the field keyword to address the compiler-generated backing field.
Okay.
So you can have a set that just is set, semicolon, done. And then a set where you say field equals this, or if something, then field equals this. So you can...
So it's a solved problem.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Which is nice.
Yeah. Let's break some discussions at the office later.
You should be on C# 13
now.
I was like, yeah, solved.
Remove all the backing fields.
I kind of missed that. That's stupid.
Panu, is there anything that you would like to get back to, or anything that you would like to add to what we've already discussed?
No, I think we had a quite various set here and covered a lot of topics for one episode. So let's leave something for the next one also.
That's actually a great promise. That's a great promise for inviting you back somewhere in the future to continue our discussion, but on other topics.
Yeah, I would happy to join.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Better Talks, the podcast. Better Talks is made possible by Betterbit Managed Software Development.
We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.